What the Jauan Jennings signing tells us about the Vikings offense in 2026. That's what we're talking about today. Friday, May 8th on Bleav in Vikings, presented by FanDuel. And I'm your host, Mike Wobschall, flying solo today, talking Vikings and specifically the Jauan Jennings signing. Before we get to some reaction about that, though, want to ask you to do us a favor and subscribe to Bleav in Vikings. Don't forget to leave a 5-star rating and write a review. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, let's get to the Vikings news of the day, and that is the announcement that the Vikings and Jauan Jennings agreed to a contract on Friday. It's a 1-year deal with an $8 million base salary plus incentives that can increase the total value to $13 million. Now, that leaves the Vikings with roughly $15.5 million in cap space still at this point in the offseason. Very good. Got some cash and cap left over to sign your draft picks. Plus, there is relief coming for the Vikings when it comes to the salary cap after June 1, when some of the post-June 1 releases and roster transactions take hold. So the Vikings in good cap space and still able to add a quality veteran receiver in Jauan Jennings. This is the highest profile signing for the Vikings of the offseason, aside from the signing of quarterback Kyler Murray back in March. So pretty impressive and notable that you can get a veteran of this caliber at this stage of the offseason, after the first few waves of free agency, after the pre-draft signings, after the draft. You get Jauan Jennings to come into the fold, and he should increase the Vikings' productivity on offense. And there's one specific part of the offense that he's going to help improve, and we'll get to that in a minute. When you look at Jauan Jennings, though, and player profile, he's 29 years old, will turn 30 in August. This will be his 6th NFL season. He's played 5 seasons already. He's got those seasons under his belt with the San Francisco 49ers. Over those 5 seasons, he's played in 75 games, 210 career catches with 22 touchdowns. So when you look at him, what type of player is he? How can he help the team? What is he going to contribute from a productivity standpoint? An average season for Jauan Jennings has been 42 catches and 4.5 touchdowns. Now, honestly, I probably would have guessed if you would have told me, hey, Jauan Jennings, what are his averages? I probably would have been a little more bullish on him. I probably would have guessed higher, but probably because the recency effect. His last 2 seasons have been very good. He's averaged over 60 catches per season in the last 2 seasons. But 2 years ago, he had a career year. In 2024, he had 77 catches for 975 yards and 6 touchdowns for the 49ers. So that's the type of player Jauan Jennings is when he's at his best. And he'll be in a position to be at his best here with the Vikings because he's healthy. He's going to be a main option. He's got a solid quarterback in Kyler Murray, and he's got an head coach in Kevin O'Connell, who has a demonstrated ability of knowing how to use weapons and different types of weapons. Plus, there's some scheme familiarity here with Jauan Jennings, Kevin O'Connell, and the Vikings, and we'll get to that in a minute as well. But another notable part about Jauan Jennings and how he can help the Vikings is his size. He's an imposing physical receiver. He stands at 6'3", 212 pounds. So this is the size of receiver that the Vikings really don't have in their offense right now. Justin Jefferson is not a small receiver, but he's not of Jauan Jennings' size, 6'3", 212. Jordan Addison also not small, but more diminutive even than Jefferson. So the Vikings didn't have this size of a receiver. They now do with Jauan Jennings at 6'3", 212 pounds. And that size is part of one of the reasons that I think this signing makes so much sense for the Minnesota Vikings. So let's move into that right now. And let's look at the 3 reasons Vikings fans should applaud this move. Number 1, Jauan Jennings is going to help with the red zone offense. The Vikings ranked 17th in red zone touchdown percentage last season, right around 57%. Not very good. And we talked a lot in the playoffs 2 years ago and all season last year about the Vikings needing to be better in the red zone. Well, Jauan Jennings is going to help the Vikings get better in the red zone. A, because of his size and making him a high-quality target in the passing game in the red zone, but also his size and physicality makes him a good run blocker, which is going to help the red zone offense as well. One of the best ways to score in the red zone, especially when you get near the goal line, is to be able to run the ball, and Jauan Jennings is going to help you out there. The number two reason Vikings fans should applaud this signing and be optimistic about it is it's low risk and low price. It's a 1-year deal, so you're not tied to the player for multiple years. It's $8 million base salary, which I presume is what he's going to count against the cap. That's half of what you're paying TJ Hawkinson. And he should fit within the scheme. So there's a low risk of him not being a scheme fit and kind of flaming out or never gaining any traction in the offense. He comes from the Kyle Shanahan offense in San Francisco, and there are some similarities in what Kyle Shanahan does to what Sean McVay does. And of course, Kevin O'Connell runs a variation or a distillation of the Sean McVay offense. So I think the learning curve is going to be pretty narrow or shallow, pretty short for Jauan Jennings. I think he's going to be able to come in and learn the offense and contribute very quickly. And then the number three reason that Vikings fans should applaud this move, the signing of Jauan Jennings, is he's a clear upgrade right away at WR3. The depth chart is better with Jauan Jennings inserted here. You had Ty Felton or Jeshwan Jones fighting for that wide receiver 3 spot, with Jalen Naylor having left to the Las Vegas Raiders via free agency. And there's no question that Jennings comes in and is an immediate day one upgrade over Felton and Jones. And no disrespect to those two young players, but they have not hit the ground running here for the Vikings offense. I think it's safe to say they could still develop into quality players for the Vikings, but Jauan Jennings comes in and he contributes and is better right away. And then when you look beyond just the depth chart and you look at the pecking order in the passing game, it's Jefferson, Addison, Jennings, Hawkinson in that order probably. And I would say Jennings is closer to overtaking Addison to be the second best option than he is to having Hawkinson rival him for the third best option. And no disrespect to Hawkinson, but I think Jennings comes in here as a quality player and is a rival to Addison as the next best option behind Justin Jefferson. And you have to think that Jauan Jennings is loving the idea of coming into this offense knowing Justin Jefferson is going to get all the attention. He's going to get the double coverage. He's going to get the safety over the top, and the opportunities that's going to present for Jauan Jennings as well as Jordan Addison. You have to think that Jennings loves that and that Kevin O'Connell is thinking about that as well. And I think another thing this tells you about the Vikings offense, I guess I got a fourth one here for you, and not necessarily that you should applaud this. It's just interesting to note that the Vikings obviously felt it important enough to upgrade at WR3 that it's not just depth behind Addison, because you're one misstep away from losing Addison for a long time, but maybe there's a little more energy behind the idea of 3 wide receiver formations of 11 personnel. And I think for the last, year and a half or so, we've kind of been wondering if the Vikings are going to be more of a 2 tight end, 3 tight end offense more frequently. And maybe they still do have some designs to that effect, but I think the signing of Jennings lets you know that Kevin O'Connell still has his eye on that 11 personnel grouping and seeing if he can get some explosion and move the ball down the field out of that personnel grouping, which I think is interesting. All right, before we go, I want to head over to FanDuel and check on some chances to win some wagers and make some money. We'll start in the NFL with the NFL futures. The Vikings now 55-1 to win the Super Bowl. They've oscillated kind of at 50-1 all offseason, but jumped up to 45-1 around draft time. But now they're back down to 55-1. So a pretty fair price on the Vikings if you are bullish on them to make some noise in the NFC and maybe win the Super Bowl. They are 55-1 to win the Super Bowl and 27-1 to win the NFC. So those are a couple of options for you for NFL futures plays at FanDuel. In the NHL, if you're paying attention to the Minnesota Wild, a lot of people listening to this podcast, Vikings fans, likely are also Wild fans. You can make some money on the Wild right now. If the Wild are plus 104 to win Game 3, which is tonight. The Wild down 2-0 in the series. Game 3 tonight for the Minnesota Wild in St. Paul against the Colorado Avalanche. To win the game, you get the Wild and plus 104. Also, if you think the Wild will bounce back and win the whole series, that's an attractive price for the Wild to win the series. It's plus 640, so almost 6.5 times your money if you take the Wild to come back and win this series. Now, one step lower, if you think the Wild have enough toughness and competitiveness to make this a competitive series, but you're not willing to bet them to win the series, you can take the Wild plus 2.5 games won in the series at plus 122. So plus money if you think that this is a 4-2 or 4-3 series for the Avalanche or Wild to win it, which I think is interesting that you get plus money on that. And then if you're extremely bullish on the Wild, you got them to win the Cup at 22-1, plus 2,200 on the Wild to win the Cup at FanDuel. And then finally in the NBA, the Wolves also play tonight, so a big Minnesota sports night for Minnesota sports fans. The Wolves back on the court against the Spurs. In the NBA, with the Wolves, you get plus 4.5 in Game 3 for the Wolves. And then if you want the Wolves to win the game outright on the money line, it's plus 168. The Wolves are 75-1 to win the finals and 35-1 to win the West. All right, that's going to do it for this episode, a short one of Bleav in Vikings. But as always, we thank you for watching and for listening. And remember to like, follow, subscribe, download, leave a review, give us a 5-star rating. You can find Bleav in Vikings wherever you find all your other favorite podcasts, but most notably Spotify. You can find us there. You can find us on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find all your other favorite podcasts. On behalf of everyone here at Bleav and Bleav in Vikings, this is Wobby signing off for now. Always remember, everyone, until next time, keep believing.